Welcome, everyone. My name is Tony here in Mission Control of American Public University Analog Research Group, here with the crew of ARG-2I, which is based in the inflatable lunar Martian analog habitat at the University of North Dakota. That's a mouthful. All four crew members are currently living in the HAB, and we have them here to chat about the mission, their experiments, and to find out what it's like to be an analog astronaut. Welcome, crew. How's it going?
Hey, Tony.
Hey, everyone.
Hiya, Tony.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Tony, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good.
A little bit of a delay here.
That's right. It's we have that extreme time delay. So I just want to kind of introduce to everyone listening. We have Commander Terry Trevino, Mission Specialist Sarah Guthrie, Mission Specialist Keith Pierce, and Mission Specialist Lex Lojek. So if you guys want to say hi, give a quick intro and introduce yourself, that'd be awesome.
I think it's appropriate for our mission commander to speak first.
Tony, thank you very much for putting this together. I really appreciate it. I know we do feel like we're remote here, and so it's nice to have contact with the outside world. Thank you.
I guess it means it's working. It's pretty accurate.
It is actually, yeah. It's been a brilliant experience. We're a very good team, very solid. We've been very happy with what we've done. I'm more than ecstatic, so I'm going to let this just keep flowing. So who's next?
You want to tell them what you're working on?
Do I want to do that right now? Sure. I'm the mission commander, so I'm part of the cohesiveness of this, and I'm also working towards plant biology, particularly growing plants in really extreme environments. That's what I'm working on in this mission particularly.
Cool.
And my name's Mission Specialist Keith Pierce. I'm originally from Norfolk, Massachusetts, U.S. military, 20 years, master's student at the American Military University in Space Studies. And I have 3 projects I'm working on. One is human factors, looking at crew composition and crew selection, also working on habitat resource management, and finally suit mobility.
Hey everybody, this is Mission Specialist Sarah Guthrie. My research project is contingency EVAs for lunar surface activities. So just kind of refining some methodologies and procedures for if there's an incapacitated astronaut out on the lunar surface. How do we get them back safely, and what kind of devices that we can use. One of the key things NASA is looking for is proper suit interface. So here at University of North Dakota, they have the NDX-1 suits, which is a pretty close replica to the EVA suits that they're using by the astronauts now. So we're testing out, some of the dexterity, some of the limitations with vision and suit weight and stuff here. So that's what I'm working on.
Hey, good afternoon. My name's Mission Specialist Lex Lojek, or Lex. So my research is, I'm also a graduate student, like all of us, in space studies, focusing in aerospace science. So my research is focused on stress and a potential stress mitigation through focused breathing, which is essentially meditation. So
Cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That's what I got going on.
Okay. So,
And I'm here, of course, to do whatever my crewmates need me to do.
okay. So I have some questions. I have actually quite a few questions on the exact experiments, but just to kind of start the conversation here, you guys are on an analog mission. Can you tell, like, for somebody maybe who hasn't heard of it or don't know exactly what it is, what is an analog mission and why are you doing it? Why is it important to do? Like, what's the point?
Well, I can tell you for sure that we are not going to know what's going to happen on the surface of any other planet unless we practice those conditions here on the analog environment. And I firmly believe that it's going to be really telling to us how the human spirit reacts to these really extreme environments. If you remember, in the Apollo missions, they went out into the desert and spent 96 hours, I believe, they had to find their way to a certain spot, and that was one of their methodologies to select someone out of a potential Apollo seat. So I'm a huge believer in what we're doing and very excited about our results here. So I'll let anybody else chime in.
I'll just add to that. One of the unique things about an analog is it allows us to test things that have never been tested before, but under the safety of being here on Earth. So we're not fighting issues with gravity, decompression, those types of issues. So, here we can do them. We can practice them safely here, and iron out any specific challenges we may have, and then refine that process, and then they can perform them safely in space. So that's why I believe analog missions are important.
So who comes up with the actual experiments that you guys do? So you each are heading up an experiment that you brought there. Are these things that like NASA or other space agencies say, this is important, we want you to research this in an analog environment? Or does this have to do with your master's thesis on a personal level? Like how do you decide what to do?
Mission Specialist LoJack or Lex. That often happens. So in other analogs, what will happen is the analog astronauts will get thrown into the analog environment and be conducting experiments for others. But in our case, we had to each bring our own research methodology or a research experiment for this mission.
So I probably didn't mention it for myself, but we are all graduate students with American Military University, which is under the American Public University system. So for some of us, it is part of a larger thesis project, and for some of us, it's just an opportunity to perform research, because we do attend an online school, and so we can kind of, with that, go towards something that interests us. So for me, 20 years of active duty experience, one of the things I was concerned about is, what we say is getting off the X when there's an incident. So how do we get someone off the X? How do we get someone out of a place of danger into a place of safety? So that's what kind of interests me. And then I just did some research individually on my own, and I found out that for the concept of operations for the Artemis Phase 1 process, contingency EVAs is a part of it. And these aren't, refined processes yet. We know that we need them. We just don't know how we're going to do them yet. So that's what kind of spurred my inspiration for my research project.
Yeah, Keith here. NASA also publishes a long list of question marks that they would like people to take a look at. So that's another source that can be used to kind of guide what research projects to do. Other than that, we were given quite a bit of latitude as far as deciding, what might interest us. I tried to, for me personally, I tried to look at areas that, was unique to an analog habitat. So like putting a small, when it comes to like crew composition and crew selection, that sort of thing. A habitat, an analog, putting people inside, close quarters, inside an actual habitat, provides the opportunity to kind of see how everybody's going to react, on a longer timeline. It's a little different than in a lab environment where you go home every night and to your own bed, and you're not just constantly living with everybody. So from a personal standpoint, that's kind of the lens that I look through as far as which research projects to work on.
Yeah, and just to kind of stay on that for a second, it's really interesting, and it's something that has been obviously experimented on a lot of times because there's been a lot of missions in the ISS and things like that. But how has it been for all four of you to be, for lack of better terms, cooped up in this super small analog environment? I mean, I'm sure you guys are just all ready to hold hands and, sing Kumbaya when you exit here.
Yeah, that's
pretty accurate, right?
It's Terry again. Tony, that's exactly what's going to happen when we leave. This is the second mission for me. I went through graduation in December and am now a graduate researcher for the school and employed as a telescope operator, and I also worked for Dr. Miller doing graduate work. I think the thing that's fascinating to me, and we've been doing this now for 50 years, I guess they've been working on analog missions. I'm really impressed with cohesiveness and Keith and his work with respect to finding the right person and putting them all in these really close-knit conditions. Yeah, it's It's a bit of a challenge. I kind of knew Lex and Sarah pretty well. We had worked together on several projects. Keith was kind of the wild card, but he's a rock star, so no big deal there. And Monday morning, flying home, can't wait to see the family and the kids.
So you guys are doing a lot of really cool experiments. So the meditation one is really, really interesting. Everyone that I asked about that one kind of assumes that, like, yes, that will obviously bring down stress. I want to ask how that experiment is going before it's all like we're finished with the mission, or is that like a wait till the mission's over to see?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Lex, so I should move back from the mic. Yeah, absolutely. So right now, actually, it's been inconclusive, unfortunately. 2 of the analog astronauts, and I don't know, well, I know who's who, but nobody knows who's who, have actually shown reduction in stress from the moment they got into the HAB, and then 2 have maintained about the same level of stress from before. However, if you look at the day as it passes, and the approximate time that we go into a short meditative breathing state, there is a small reduction right then and there in the stress level according to these Garmin devices. The next time I do this, I want to find something that is more conclusive with stress levels. And I'm also going to change up the study, because one of the things we found was it was incredibly disruptive and bluntly annoying to stop every hour. Even I was annoyed on the third day.
Your stress level's going up.
It's getting to be too much. But at the same time, and I haven't asked the crew yet, I noticed personally that having that quiet does make a small difference. And I have more data to compile. We've got a couple more days.
I'd be really curious.
I would like to add, for just real quick, for Lex's thing, while we did probably find stopping every hour on the hour for 5 minutes of breathing rather annoying, there was a point yesterday that I found it to be incredibly valuable to me. When we were doing our EVA yesterday, after we got out of the habitat and we were setting up to do it, we had to stop for a breath. And I just needed to sit down in that moment and stop for 5 minutes and breathe. And I felt so much better after doing that. So even though it was intentful to do it, I did find that, I needed it in that moment. Because one of the things when you're wearing the suit, it's incredibly cumbersome. It's heavy. I have this harness on me that's like just squeezing the breath out of me underneath of it. It's incredibly hot. And we hadn't even started yet. And so I needed that 5 minutes to get my head on straight so we could perform the study. So I would say thank you for that.
What do they say? The person that doesn't have time to meditate is probably the person that needs to meditate.
Yeah. I want to kind of go off that, Sarah. Your experiment, everyone has their own experiment that they bring in, but you guys aren't the only ones doing the experiment. So when you guys published videos of the EVAs, Keith was in the suit, Lex was in the suit. You guys were all helping putting the suits on. Could you, Sarah, talk a little bit more in detail about your experiment, and then just kind of how you guys all are working together on these?
Yeah, sure. So just for people who don't understand, whenever you have a research project, you're called the principal investigator. And so right now, Terry and Keith and Lex are my voluntary participants. So they've also volunteered to talk about their experience as well. So I just want to make that clear. And so part of my study, it's more of an observational investigation, because what I want to know from them is, while they're wearing the suits, how does the suit perform while performing these tasks? And what are the challenges and limitations they're experiencing? So we had 3 devices originally. It was a 3-part study with 3 separate devices. We had a dolly, a transport chair, like a wheelchair, and then a medical sled. The dolly thing didn't work out, and sometimes that happens with research. Some things just don't work out. But we had the chair and we had the sled. And so while Keith and Terry and Lex are performing these tasks, I'm observing them and asking them, like, how hard is it to do the buckles? how hard is it to lift our dummy, who we call Kurt, from the ground?
Sarah, what does Kurt stand for?
Oh, Kurt. So Kurt, he's an acronym for Kinetic Utilization Research Tool, and he's actually named after my dear sweet boss at work, who's also named Kurt. He's a U.S. Marine. So my
Your sweet
staff
30-pound
actually
boss.
voted on that name for him. My 30-pound boss. He weighs about 30 pounds, I think, in real life. He's super small. And so just kind of looking like, hey, how, what are the challenges you're facing? And so we've been able to identify some things, even though these are off-the-shelf products, it's kind of like a proof of concept. If we use a medical sled, what are some things that we need to have for astronauts? Probably bigger buckles. We probably need, larger straps, larger carabiners. Is there a way to hook the sled to a latch point on the suit? So all you have to do is load the person and then hook the sled to you and then walk away. So those are the kinds of things that we're testing. And this is actually building to a larger project that we'll do at NDRS in January. So does that kind of answer your question?
Absolutely. No, yeah, that definitely does. Shifting gears a little bit, I want to hear about Keith's experiment, because Keith, you're basically, you want to figure out how to find an ideal crew composition. Now, we've seen crews in space on actual missions not get along. I mean, that's a whole different story, right? We've seen some pretty disastrous missions where it's the crew composition that made or break the mission. So what exactly are you doing to test this in an analog environment?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I might have bit up more than I could chew, because it's a huge, loaded question when it comes to what is the right crew to have. But I do bring a little bit of experience to the table with the Ranger Assessment Selection Program, the Golden Knights Assessment and Selection Program, and just general knowledge on various different special operations selection programs. While doing a comprehensive selection would be a huge undertaking, you basically have to, control every aspect of the habitat and everything that's happening. It would be too much. It would just be, the scope would be too large. However, I'm looking at it similar to the way Sarah's looking at her research project, where it's kind of just observations. The first start is just learning what I don't know by being here and experiencing it for myself, kind of making observations. Having said that, there are some specific metrics that I'm trying to measure. One is cognition. We are measuring specifically spatial memory, and reason I chose that is I wanted some kind of quantifiable measurement that I could use, and looking at other analogs, that was one area that they had actually noticed a decline in. So if I could measure a decline or lack of decline in someone, that would give me at least one metric to grasp onto. So that was one that I grasped, or that I kind of ran with. Another one is just taking video logs and getting that feedback on a day-to-day basis. Each of the crew members is doing a 3 to 5 minute video log each day, usually about 3 minutes, and they're just kind of talking, answering some basic questions. What are some of the challenges you've had? What are some of the successes? How do you feel mentally? How you feel physically? And then just kind of tracking that throughout the course of the analog, and that's kind of the more subjective side, But one part of the equation we don't really have is the outside looking in side, which I would like to take a look at, maybe on future analogs at the ILMAH habitat, where I'm not part of the crew, and I'm not kind of in it myself, and there's no conflict of interest there. I'm kind of looking from the outside looking in. So really complex answer,
no, totally.
Really really touchy subject, but definitely something that needs to be explored, because if you're sending people for years at a time to live together in a small confined space, with not a ton of resources, you really need to make sure that we have the right group of people going on a trip like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony, one of the things that Scott brought to the table as part of his contribution to the mission is we've got 230 questions approximately that we have to answer every day. and they are cognition. How do we feel? Have we slept? Do we want to do horrible things to ourselves or other people?
Emotions.
Emotion recognition study, and these people with these really mad-looking faces, and it's been very challenging every day to do that, because it doesn't take 2 or 3 minutes. It takes a good half an hour, which, we have plenty of time, but anyway.
And UND as well. So we also do UND experiments here too, and those have been either plant studies. Right. We have some NASA plant studies, but we also have some survey questions about
magnitudes,
how we feel about things, and our
and you have to be completely honest for the sake of the mission and the research.
Of course.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to be completely honest. So some days you have good days, and some days you're just like,
So you mentioned UND.
Yeah, honesty is very important. Big time.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume, I didn't mean to cut you off, Lex. I assume that you obviously don't want to offend crewmates, but obviously the mission comes first. We all know that. But I just imagine that there's a bit of a internal tug of war, for at least a half second where you're like, man, we kind of got in an argument today and that sucked. Or, man, he's getting really irritable. He or she, sorry, not assuming, is getting really irritable. And maybe this is, these are qualities that we need to look out for. But I do want to ask you, you mentioned you're doing some of UND's experiments and some experiments regarding NASA. Terry, I know that you're doing plant experiments. Are those the same ones, or do you have your own?
I brought my own. I'm using a Martian regolith that I'm hoping to use on ISS. A couple of things that I'd like to see is how plants propagate and how they elongate the taproot itself. I'd also hope to see in these regolith situations, right? And in microgravity, I'd like to know how those things work. I'm also working on another project for magnitude.io. It's an ISS experiment that's up there regularly, and I have the comparable down here right now that I'm following. And let's see, I'm also working on just seeing how which light wave is the best for plants in these early development. I don't consider myself an astrobiologist or a botanist or anything like that, but North Dakota will learn to worship my botany ways.
I was going to say, all the pictures you guys are posting, your plants are growing like crazy. So
yeah, they're doing really well. That's a good point.
Well, you did have an incident too.
I did. The NASA pods unfortunately failed overnight. We had a really, really dry night last night. Oh. And so these are obviously seedlings, and because they're so sensitive to extreme change, they failed. I lost 70% of the seedlings, which is part of the deal.
I mean, I don't know, but obviously the moon, well, maybe not obviously, the dryness doesn't change on the moon, does it?
That's correct. We would be in plant modules that would be highly regulated, light, humidity, temperature. It would be a very ideal environment. And I hope to have that opportunity to be up there and work on that.
Cool.
So Terry, if I might ask you a cool question about that. You said the other day that you were using low light, and because it was such low light, it was low power, right? So you could regulate an environment with a very low power input. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. The plants themselves did really well initially, as from the seedling stage where the seed actually swells up, it opens up, and then it reaches for the sun, or in this case, these LED lights. What I noticed was that it elongated 50% longer than it probably would have under the hotter, brighter lights, because it was reaching up and to get as close as light to the top, like a giraffe getting to the top of a tree,
to work harder.
To the best, leaves. Yeah, it had to work harder, and it was a really interesting. It's a good point you bring that up, Lex. It was really very interesting to me how that happened.
Cool. Wow, that's cool. Okay, well,
yeah, it is cool stuff.
I want to ask you, each of you guys, if you want to go around or popcorn, I don't know who goes first. I want to hear
Terry.
Unexpectedly, or maybe expectedly, what's been the hardest part? Not necessarily the worst part, but the hardest part for each of you, and also your favorite part.
I know hardest. I think I know what
Lex.
My favorite part has been. I know that already. For me, my favorite part has been the EVAs.
Yeah.
It gets you out of the hat. That's nice. And what's been the worst part?
Or the hardest? The hardest.
I'm gonna have to think on that. I'm not sure.
You guys can go around and start with your favorite part if you want, but I just kind of want to hear the everyone's different answers and things like that.
Well, since I'm sitting next to Lex, I'll just go next, and I guess we'll go around. I think my favorite part is we actually had an outreach today where we did a live EVA, and kind of got to talk to viewers and stuff. And one of the things, it was, they asked us, how do you get to be a part of this, and why do this and everything. And I feel like I'm kind of living out a childhood dream a little bit. I didn't come from a traditional pipeline, of astronaut corps, right? Going to the military academy, becoming a pilot. So this is an opportunity for me when I've loved space and always wanted to be an astronaut since I was a child, get to do that in an analog environment. Terry's pointing out all my space stickers on my computer. And so for me, that's been probably my favorite part is to kind of live out my childhood dream and then take my technical experience that I've gained in the military and then be able to apply that to the space community. So to say challenges, I think the hardest part is I miss my kids deeply, but I can't wait to snuggle with them on Sunday.
I think for me, one of the biggest challenges is to stay in simulation. As good as the ILMAH habitat is, things happen. We had to fix the toilet. There's always a temptation. The ceiling leaks. The plant module doesn't regulate temperature maybe the way an actual plant module would. So kind of staying in sim and staying realistic to what would actually happen. That's the biggest challenge, really, in any analog, I imagine, but it's been a challenge here. As far as what I've liked the most about it, having these kind of an unexpected surprise, something I didn't even have planned coming into this, was how good of a tool and training aid the EVA suits have been. So it's really given me the ability to kind of let my imagination wander and kind of apply some mountaineering, some things I've learned from mountaineering and just human performance in general, and really kind of test them out using the suit. So that's been a welcome surprise and something that I personally really enjoyed.
Yeah, and just to add to that, coming from my experience, extreme environment, high altitude mountaineering, I do believe the human factors is a massive role in crew selection of someone who would be fit enough to handle these really crazy environments we're heading to. I'm looking forward to seeing my family and hanging out with them. I'm really looking forward to that. I do have to say, though, the best part in this environment has been the focus. I find it very easy to focus on my science and the results and able to write to those results right then without someone pulling on my leg, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lex, we're waiting for your hardest part. We've been biting our fingernails here.
So for me, so I have access to my data immediately, which is one of the neatest things. You can just log in to a secure website and I can pull everybody's data. However, what I've been having to do is literally transcribe it minute by minute of every day. And I have honestly found it really hard to focus on that. When we're going to we have an EVA planned or we have an outreach planned or something like that. I will go and get some stuff done and then turn around and be like, oh, I got to finish my surveys. Oh, I got to do a cognition test. Oh, I got to do something else. And for me personally, that's been surprisingly challenging, is just transcribing the data that I need to transcribe. Despite the fact that I have it all right there, I can look at it at any time. I want to transcribe it into Excel spreadsheet. It's just very tedious. Extremely.
There's a lot of interruptions throughout the day.
Yes, yeah. We also get interrupted every hour for 5 minutes. I wonder whose fault that is. Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys obviously are doing amazing work up there, and we wish here in Mission Control, we wish all of you guys great success with all of your experiments, and we can't wait, especially after the week you've had and the week we've had here on Earth. We can't wait to have you back. So in kind of a spirit to close this out, is there anything that maybe we didn't cover that you guys wanted the listeners to know? Anything about you guys or your mission or anything like that?
I think Terry, you should start with that.
Yeah, I think we should discuss what we look forward to most other than our family. And for me, it's a milkshake.
So Sarah's going to be Culver's.
I told them we were eating Culver's when it gets done.
We kept planning to, and then on the way in, Sarah and I got stuck in Minneapolis.
Oh yeah, that was
We didn't even talk about
that
that.
was a day.
Yeah, that was a day.
I think the only thing that I would add to this is that if you have an interest in space, don't limit yourself by where you're at right now. Don't believe in the lie because, I'm not smart enough in math, I'm not smart enough in science, or I already have a career. If you have an interest in space, pursue that. And analogs are a great way to pursue those interests, and if you're a part of the American Public University System or AMU, we have a spot for you in ARG. So that's like my little plug for ARG. But I say go for it. I've loved this experience, and I love being able to share it with all of you guys.
Yeah, and I will actually add to that. You don't have to have crazy good grades. You don't have to be the top of your class. Most of the people that work here at Mission Control are all doing it volunteer. So yeah, I just wanted to echo what Sarah said there. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, once again, I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time from your super busy schedule, all your experiments. I know that it's been a little while. You probably have to go take 5 minutes and breathe because we're probably at that time. So I will let you guys get back to what you're doing. But thank you so much for hopping on and making the time.
All right,
Thank you so
Tony.
much.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
We'll
you,
talk to you
Tony.
guys soon and see you when you're out.
All right,
Be
bye.
safe.
Bye.
All right, bye.